On to this now. It's a real issue in South Africa, is it not? When the sun rises on the 1st of March 2026, millions of South African workers will begin their day knowing their time is worth a little more. The national minimum wage is now climbing to over 30 Rand an hour, specifically 30 Rand 23 cents an hour. It's a modest but meaningful increase that speaks to the daily realities of people who are forced to stretch every rand to cover food, transport, school fees. This is good news for domestic workers, farm workers, and other low-paid employees. It's a small shift in the long struggle for dignity, fairness, and survival. Often, the cost of living doesn't keep up with the pay, does it? Thembinkosi Mkalipi is the Deputy Director General at the Department of Labour and Employment. Thank you for your time and welcome to 702 Breakfast.
Good morning, Bongani, and good morning to your listeners.
Talk to me about this increase, 30 Rand 23 cents per hour. And of course, it comes amid real pressures on many South Africans with the rise in living costs and inflation.
Yes, that's the case. But the National Minimum Wage Act requires that the Commission has got to review the national minimum wage every year and make sure that it's not eroded by inflation, and we think that they've done, and also make sure that the employers who are supposed to pay this minimum wage are also able to pay it. Therefore, the balancing act is to ensure that you don't have too high increases that will create unemployment. At the same time, you don't have a low increases that will be meaningless to vulnerable workers. And that's the balancing act the Commission is trying to make here.
And do you think you found the sweet spot?
We think over the 6 years of the minimum wage, we found the 6 point, and that is supported by the research that we do every year. Not the department, it's commissioned by the department, but it's done by the University of Cape Town, which look at the effect of the minimum wage on employment.
All right, you talk about the Commission, of course, I imagine you mean the National Minimum Wage Commission. What specific data or research did they rely on to come up with this figure?
As I've already indicated, the research is provided by UCT, the unit that is commissioned by the department to do this research. It looks at the information like the information released by State South Africa in terms of where we are with that. It look also other data. It look at all the information available in the labor market to test two things. Whether the previous minimum wage that was increased, what effect that minimum wage had in the labor market. And as I've said, over the last 6 years, the report indicates to us that the effect of the minimum wage on employment is really negative. There's no negative effect in that it reduces employment. We're not saying that it increases employment, but we're saying that it does not have a negative effect on employment. That's what the research says.
I suppose one of the key challenges is making sure that it is enforced. Reports suggest that particularly in domestic work, many workers are still paid below the minimum wage.
That's the bigger challenge that is facing the Commission and society, because the same research indicates to us that compliance with the minimum wage is at 60% level. Therefore, about 40% of workers are not getting the minimum wage that they should get. And that's why the Commission is holding this month, on the 19th of February, a workshop with bringing in the International Labour Organization, bringing in experts to look at these issues of enforcement and what is it that we need to do to increase the level of complying with the national minimum wage.
All right, just work it out, for example, for anybody listening to us who might even be an employer or indeed an employee themselves. What does that translate to, say, for example, to somebody who works, say, once a week? And what would the minimum monthly salary for a full-time, say, live-in worker be?
Well, I mean, for a person who works once a week, assuming that the person works for 9 hours, then if you multiply the hourly rate by 9, it will mean that for that one day that the person work will earn around about 272. If a person work for the whole week, then they will earn around about 1,360. And if a person work for a month, they will earn around about to 4,000 there, close to 5,700 and something there.
It's a tricky one. I have had confrontations with people who will, for example, with a live-in domestic worker, calculate things like, but hang on, this person lives on my property rent-free, they eat my food, and they make those calculations as part of how they arrive at a salary. Does the department frown upon that kind of practice?
Well, there is a sectoral determination on foreign workers and domestic workers that allow that you can make deduction for accommodation, you can make deduction for food. But the BCA also confines deduction that can be made. They cannot be more than a third of what the employee would have earned. Therefore, there is allowance to make those great deduction.
So I was the one who was wrong then in that instance, because I just thought that's unreasonable.
Well, it's not. You're correct. I mean, you could argue that it's unreasonable. Whether the issue is whether is it allowed by law. Sometimes law is not reasonable.
So what does that mean then for other social protection measures, such as UIF, for example, to ensure that workers' livelihoods are protected?
Apply. What it means that an employer has got to pay to UIF 2% of what the employee is earning, and the employer can recoup 1% of that from the employee's salary. They don't have to, but they can in terms of the law.
Do you note differences in terms of where provinces might be around employment figures and the compliance with these kinds of, with the legislation around this? Well,
I mean, the provinces that are very high on unemployment, let's put it the sectors. You'll see the farming sector on the issues of compliance, the domestic sector, precisely because of the difficulty of enforcing. Inspectors can't just go into your house because there are security issues. They've got to make arrangements and all those issues. And the fact that these workers are not organized into union, therefore they fear even reporting to and if they are not being paid the minimum wage. Although even if they are dismissed or victimized for reporting, they likely to win that case. But the risk is that whilst the case is going on, the person is dismissed, they are not earning. Therefore, the people working in this sector make up a call that says, I mean, am I prepared to take the risk of staying out of work for 3 months whilst the case is going through and not getting an income, or should I just keep quiet? And those are the problems that we are facing in terms of this.
And many South Africans will argue that some of these rules make it difficult to employ locals, and so they often will choose to employ undocumented migrants from elsewhere.
Well, because undocumented migrants are more likely to accept any offer of wages that is put, whether it's below the minimum wage. That's the problem facing the country as a whole.
Yeah.
That you have undocumented migrants who are prepared to accept anything, who would not report, and there will be employers who would exploit that situation. But in terms of the law, whether you are undocumented or documented, the minimum wage applies. But the fact is that they are not going to come forward and report these cases precisely because they are undocumented.
So ultimately, all of this requires, or at least relies, on good citizenship and people doing the right thing. Enforcement is a different issue altogether. The Deputy Director General at the Department of Labour and Employment, Thembinkosi Mkalipi.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.